7:02. 7:02 will call to order the Board of Commissioners regular meeting for May 17th, 2022, the South County Fire Board of Commissioners. Can I have those at headquarters please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move on to approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve? Commissioner Daniels, do we have a second on the motion? Commissioner Teoflack, any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Kenny.
Yes. Can we add, I don't know if it's just maybe for the minutes, can we add excused absence on there for Commissioner Chen?
What is our policy currently on excused absences? What were the exceptions? Melissa?
Let me go ahead and look up the exact line item.
Commissioner Kenny, do you recall?
Usually it's been when somebody pre-requests it. Generally, we've granted an excused absence.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Oh, well, I guess point of order is this as to the motion to approve the agenda, or is this around the Commissioner Chan excused absence issue?
To approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to amend then to add excused Commissioner Chan from the meeting.
We have a second on the amendment. Commissioner Daniels. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to our consent agenda items 4A through D.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. That was just the motion to amend the motion regarding the agenda. We still need to vote on the main motion.
Okay. All in favor of the amended motion? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to consent agenda 4A through D. Have a motion to approve consent agenda. Commissioner Lawrence, do we have a second on the motion? Commissioner Daniels, any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Kenny.
Yes, I had a question on the consent agenda for Chief Hovis. Good evening, Chief. On bill number 11670, the Snohomish County Fire District 26 Training Center rental. And thank you for your response on that from a little while ago. And I just wanted to clarify that, and I didn't know, District 26 is not part of the training academy.
As a full participatory agency, no, they are not.
Okay. But for those that are, like, I remember there's been training at Everett's Training Ground. There's been training at Fire District, Snohomish County Fire District 4, which I think at one time wasn't, but I think maybe now part of it. And I didn't specifically recall training at 26, but for those that are part of the academy, they're reimbursed at $600 an hour. That's just for everybody, including us.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let Chiefs Isotalo and if needed, Chief Wells give a good explanation of that since they've got training and ops. Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Kenny, currently it's $600 per day for the other facility use. So
okay, but for everybody that's a member of the
yes
consortium.
Yes.
Okay, and then for somebody who's outside the consortium, like Fire District 26, we just pay whatever rate they set.
Yeah, they have a annual set rate for, there's even departments from King County, I understand, because the live fire facilities are so few and far between now. So they set their rates annually. The difference is none of the other facilities are burn facilities. And so to be able to burn the Class A's, obviously being remote as they are, and having the space out there in Sky Valley, we're able to go up there and do that. And part of this bill too was for some consumables. So for some of the pallets that we burn there, as well as some bales of straw as well, were included in that. But yeah, that's the price difference.
Yeah, and it worked out to $1,500 a day. And I just didn't know if everybody, if like everybody in the consortium didn't charge, because if we're all part of it, why charge? On the other hand, everybody charging the same rate, that also makes sense. And then I wasn't clear on whether they were in or out. And if they're out, then we got to pay their rate. So that all makes sense. Great,
Yeah, and
thank you.
and if you'll remember, at the start of the academy in 2018, we had a very small charge for the use of our facility until the consortium asked us to kind of do a forensic accounting on what our actual true costs are, and that's what adjusted to the $600 per day, and that was carried through to the other facilities, right down to rolls of toilet paper and such, and electricity and garbage and all of that, and cleaning. So it's all in there.
It all costs money. So, okay,
Yeah,
great.
great.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
question.
Anything further, Commissioner Kenny?
No.
Any other questions, comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to approval of our meeting minutes for our May 3rd and May 10th regular and work sessions. We have a motion to approve. Commissioner Daniels, do I have a second on the motion? Commissioner Lawrence, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anybody on the call wishing to make public comment? If so, please use the raise your hand function and you'll be elevated to the meeting and allowed to speak. Uh, 9 attendees on the call, but no hands raised. Go ahead and close public comment. Moving on to our fire chief report with Chief Hovis.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Urban, and good evening again, commissioners. And Commissioner Kenny, you said good evening earlier, so I didn't get a chance to say it back, but good evening, everybody. Have a shorter fire chief's report tonight. So commissioners, you've been emailed the normal COVID report as well as the first watch data. So could answer any questions related to that, but I'm going to skip to a little bit more specific updates for South County. One of which is benefit administration company was supposed to be here tonight, as I discussed last week with Tim Hill. That is our medical self-insurance to provide an update for 2021. The data that he has that he gets from the other company that manages our medical HMA, it's just not to the point where we could bring it forward and be able to make the packet last week. They need a little bit more time with his staff to review, get everything together and make sure that we have a very comprehensive report. So we've got it set for the first meeting in June. I sent you an email about that as well. Just wanted to let you know that we want to bring him back, be comprehensive, and only bring him back once, not twice like last time. So that's the goal. So look forward to seeing him the first meeting in June. Second item that I have is I've got an introduction, and you probably noticed a new face that's joined our team, and that is Chris Grunewald. Got it right. That is our new IT manager, succeeding Mike Vermeulen, who is his predecessor. He's excited to be here. I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit, but I got your name right, and he is a local, and he lives in the RFA, which is great. We're happy to have him here. The team did a great recruitment, and I'm going to let him tell you just a little bit about himself. Chris.
Hi, nice to see you guys all. Looking forward to working with you guys. Just a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in California, moved to Washington about 3 years ago with my wife. Been working in the private sector in managed service providers in both California and Washington for the last 13, 14 years now. So just looking forward to bringing my experience with working with lots of different types of companies and bringing it into this organization and helping continue along with what you guys had. Sounds like I have some pretty big shoes to fill, but I'm hoping I can do that and keep taking you guys forward in the IT world and filling the needs that need to be taken care of. So looking forward to working with and meeting you guys all in person at some point here.
Good to meet you, Chris.
Thanks.
Welcome.
And we're happy to have him. So that's great. Chris, welcome to the team. So with that, we're going to give just a little PowerPoint presentation, a few visual updates as I finish the fire chief report. Lori, please. Yeah, commissioners, I know that you've been emailed by Melissa Blankenship. We didn't want you to not know about the ribbon cutting ceremony for Ballinger Park waterfront project this Saturday at noon. So I think Melissa's wanting to know if anyone else wants to enjoy the day there with us. Hopefully it looks as sunny as it does in that picture on Saturday. There'll most likely be some elected officials, definitely city staff, members of the public, kind of a rework of the park there and some safety issues that have happened with people enjoying summer weather and being out on the water. And we'll have Engine 19 there and Battalion 15, as well as me and some other staff. So we'll look forward to seeing everyone there from the community, and just wanted to make you aware of the event. So with that, next, please, Lori. One too far. Commissioners, want to let you know that our summer 22 edition newsletter is at the printer. The mailing date is May 27th. So as early as Saturday that week, and certainly through the first week of June, everyone in the RFA will be getting our Siren newsletter. The highlights of the messaging within it are listed there. So really just highlighting all the things we do that aren't just responding to fire and EMS type emergencies. Overview on our CRP program. We've got a chief message in there and new commissioner bios. And just want to let you know about that. And next slide. And just want to talk about one specific event that we had here recently, because it's a unique event. Firefighters responded to a house fire in the 2900 block of 205th Place Southwest. So that is unincorporated Linwood on Thursday, May 12th. Smoke alarms alerted a resident of the home, and he safely exited, but not everyone was able to get out on their own. So usually it's a lot of times we'll get the cats out first, but our crews went in there and rescued 3 cats and administered oxygen using a pet mask. All 3 cats are doing well when we cleared the scene. So with that, that concludes my fire chief report this evening. Staff would welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments for Chief? Commissioner Daniels?
I didn't realize that you had pet, excuse me, pet air components. So that's impressive.
It's some fire departments started moving that direction. We were able to get those originally as a gift from one of the local emergency vet hospitals, and it's been valuable. I think probably everyone in this room has had an incident like that where they've seen that administered, and it's great. It's canine and feline, and it's worked out really well. And then with an owner's permission, we're able to assist with, getting an animal to one of those places, but it has to be the owner's okay, because obviously it's self-pay or pet insurance for other resuscitation efforts that might happen there. And then some of our cities obviously have animal control that can help with that as well, and get a feline, canine, or other animal to a different place. So yeah.
Chief, does that count towards our GEMT funds?
Not yet.
Transport a pet.
Not yet, but you never know where the world may go.
So we've got our summer publication coming out. What's the release date for our fall publication? Is that September traditionally?
We have a timeline. Without having it in front of me, I'd hate to say it's this time or that time, but PIO Hines has that all storyboarded out.
Okay, just curious if we'll be changing the cover in the next edition and adding Mill Creek, or if that will wait until 2023.
Cover wise, not sure, but it is in the chief's message.
Great.
Okay.
Any additional questions, comments for Chief before we move on? All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Moving on to our union report with Zach Cash.
Good evening, all. I've got an even lighter report than Chief, as in no report. So good to see y'all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for our union representative? All right, thank you. Moving on to item 9, unfinished business. Item 9A are finance 2023 budget calendar development follow-up with CFO Bothwell and Chief Hovis.
Good evening. This is a follow-up to the proposed 2023 budget development calendar that we brought you last week. So we received your feedback and we made a couple adjustments. So I'll just walk you through those really quickly. So the first piece of feedback we received was to increase the meeting time for division budget requests and discussion of discretionary requests. And the revision was to add discussion time to a regular meeting agenda and retooling, and we retooled the meeting content to provide more time for division budget requests and discretionary requests. So in the calendar, the blue line in the middle there is the meeting that we added. That's on September 1st. The second item of feedback we received was to increase the time allotted to board deliberations. And the revision we made for that was to add board deliberations to a regular meeting agenda and add an optional special meeting to the agenda planner as well. So this is a different part of the calendar. The two blue lines at the top and the bottom are the adds. So the November 1st was an added meeting, and then the optional meeting there is showing the week of November 9th. If the board decides that they want to add an optional meeting, that's the week that we have it penciled out to happen. And that. All right, so those are the revisions. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Kenny?
So Mr. Bothwell, I guess I wasn't quite clear based on what you just said, the dates that you listed there, which I've got on my agenda packet at pages 39 and 40. Are those the only dates that you're planning on talking about budget in the fall? Because I guess I was not under the impression that those were the only dates, because you said, well, you added a date, November 1st, which is the sorry, which is the first meeting in November. And I mean, just generally in the past, probably every meeting in the fall from September, certainly all of October and the 3 meetings in November, there's budget every meeting. And so I didn't know, are you then not planning to talk about budget at the meetings not on this list, or are these like highlighted for particular purposes, but we'll still be talking budget on the other meetings of September, October, and November?
So the complete budget calendar is in the packet, and the only changes since the presentation were the 3 meetings I just described. So we aren't scheduling budget conversations at every meeting in, I think you said maybe August or November. There's a few meetings where we won't see. Okay, September. There's a few meetings where we don't have budget conversations scheduled.
Well, I'm not sure if that's going to cover enough time for our budget discussion in the fall. In the past, we've used every meeting in October and November. Most meetings in September, maybe not the first meeting, but certainly the other 2. Usually there's a workshop in September. I see that's not on there. So I kind of scratching my head at how we're going to have the time to talk about budget if we're not talking about it more. So I guess just a general observation, but I do see that since last week, Mr. Bothwell, you're keeping the chief's proposed agenda, or not agenda, but budget to be released on October 18th, which is the 3rd meeting of October. And I think that's too late to release the chief's budget. What the board is going to do is going to revolve significantly around what the chief does. And so typically when the chief releases his full and final budget, it's between 20 and 60 minutes of presentation. Generally, the board's not able to respond on the spot. So that meeting is not, there'll be questions about the chief's budget, but there won't be a substantive, say, rebuttal, I guess, for lack of a better word, until the next meeting. The trouble with the 18th is that's the last meeting of October, leaving only the first 2 meetings in November before the 3rd meeting in November when we need to get the budget passed. So that's not a lot of time for the board to respond to the chief's budget. And then it's not a lot of time for staff to respond to the board's concerns, questions, or, the board's moving a different direction. So I'd suggest that the chief's budget be produced the first meeting of October, and that's October 4th, Tuesday, October 4th, so that the board has the opportunity then for the 2 meetings of October, October 11, October 18, and the first 2 meetings in November, November 1, November 8th, to chew on that, respond back, and that way both staff and the board can work through the chief's budget in those 4 meetings to leave enough time so we have a smooth landing to this on that 3rd meeting in November. One of the things that I'm always hopeful as a former chair is to try and make that 3rd meeting and the final budget approval as smooth as possible. Not everybody's going to agree. Some people are going to disagree and vote no, but try to reduce the potential chaos of that meeting, because staff has to produce a lot of financial documents. And if things are changing at that meeting, it gets really hard to pass stuff. So trying to make it as final as we can coming out of the 2nd meeting in November is really important. But that means the board needs to have enough time to chew on these things. So I just think that 2 meetings to do that really is not enough. And we'd be better off to push the chief's proposed budget back to the 1st meeting of October. So that gives us 4 full meetings, really 3.5 to really chew on it. And maybe I'm being too cautious, and I'm hopeful that the fall will be smooth, but I'm just always concerned about if it's not smooth, making sure we build in enough time both for the board and staff to deal with problems if they come up. Thanks.
Commissioner Lawrence, then Commissioner Daniels.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Kenny on that, early and substantial. But also I'm going to beat this drum again that I started beating the last meeting. How about we have extra meeting nights? Since we've cut off the, what the heck are they called there? Brain's lost it here. Committee meetings. We have extra. We just have another during the month of September. Start with extra meetings that just start working on the budget. Just have one extra meeting a week for 2 months or something like that. Whatever it takes. Not a whole day of talking about the budget somewhere. I don't know anybody. I mean, my mind isn't going to be able to talk budget stuff for a whole day. So anyway, I agree with Commissioner Kenny and about earlier, and I think we just need to have more meetings on it, because when we get to the fall, we're talking the budget and it takes all night. I mean, we're getting out of here at 11:30. And I think the staff would rather, and also if we just have a meeting on the budget, well, I guess most of the staff I'm not sure who would have to be there at those meetings, at least the preliminary ones. Not hold all the staff there like on a regular Tuesday night. So anyway, those are just some miscellaneous ramblings on my part. Thank you.
Commissioner Daniels, then Commissioner Teoflack.
I agree with Commissioner Kenny. I think that it's better to have too much time than not enough time. And I did notice that there was an extra Tuesday in September, and maybe we could use that to discuss the budget as a special meeting or of some sort. But I think we could get creative and find some extra time so that we aren't in a crunch. Thanks.
I agree. Extra Tuesdays are the ones that we already have set aside. So it tends to make it easier for scheduling if people have other obligations. Commissioner Teoflack.
I guess I see that, or I agree with CFO Bothwell that we start talking about the budget or soliciting feedback from the board starting on September the 1st on the calendar in response to the presentation of the status quo budget. an introduction to discretionary operating budget requests. So we start talking about it then. Then we have another meeting September 13th where we're talking about it again. And then after those two meetings, we have a month for the staff and chief to take what we have given them, and then for the chief to provide a preliminary budget. So it feels like to me we are starting in like September. So I feel like this calendar to me seems sufficient, and we can always, I feel like, say, okay, well, it's September 13th. We need to have our next meeting. We need to talk about this again. I feel like we can pivot easily. So I'm okay with this calendar.
Chief, would you be able to do a brief explanation on kind of the status quo budget and then the chief's budget, kind of the differentiation between that?
Yeah, certainly the status quo budget. I'd like to a little bit avoid what we got into last year when we got labor settlement and then very high inflation numbers through CPIW, where we were already getting towards the chief's budget, and then we had to pivot that direction. So status quo budget would really just say, here's where we're at with 2022 moving forward, understanding what AV numbers we have, what is CPIW, what is our cost of labor, just to do in 2023 without any discretionary changes. Here's the cost of running the RFA. And then those discretionary asks would build upon those. And whether we had a meeting on the 4th to have the preliminary budget or on the 11th at the work session, be prepared to have the budget with status quo plus any adds after getting presentations from staff and feedback from commission to get this honed in and hopefully have a more efficient process than we had last year. So that is the hope and the goal.
And that chief's budget essentially is additional equipment beyond what we currently have. It's additional personnel, adding BCs, MSOs, things like that are to try to move the ball forward and have us, working more efficiently or being able to have better coverage. Those are the kind of the big ones that everybody pays a little bit more attention to because we're getting individual presentations on them. I do agree, maybe moving up the presentation of that a little bit earlier might give more time for the digesting of, do we need 80 more of those units, or do we need these additional positions for the board to be able to kind of make those calls and add that to the existing budget.
Yeah, there was some asks. You remember last year, 7 FTE asks that we had, we honed it down to 3. So there will be some that I asked for last year that'll be brought forward again. So some will be familiar to previous commissioners, some will be new. But I think I mentioned this at our last meeting. This is going to look a little bit more streamlined, like our budget process for 2020 than it looked like for 2021 for 2022. So that is a little bit what's built into this draft budget calendar.
Any additional questions, comments? Is that enough direction for you, CFO Bothwell? Great.
Great. Thanks, commissioners. We appreciate the feedback. We'll look to bring that back then at first meeting in June. Finalize it.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Moving on, unfinished business, item 9B, our finance 2023 staffing projection discussion with Chief Isotelo and Bothwell.
Thank you, Chair Urban. So as you can see by the agenda, Bill, we're back to ask any or answer, any questions that the board might have. And there's a resolution and a budget amendment in your packet as well for your consideration.
Commissioner Kenny?
Thank you, Chief Isotelo. Are you able to, I am recalling $1 million was the ask, and what you didn't break that down, the costs for the to staff Mill Creek versus the cost for 2022 on the $1 million, the staffing or getting up to staffing for Mill Creek versus Edmonds. I was curious the Edmonds component of that, like what percentage of that is the Edmonds side of it, which I recall from your memo was to hire 10 more people to staff for Edmonds.
Yeah, that's correct. It's 10 for Edmonds and then the 20 additional for Mill Creek.
So, I mean, just
A
based
third.
on the numbers, that's like a third. Is that,
Yes, sir.
is that fair? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I'm trying, you didn't put it in there and I didn't have time to look before the meeting, but what is our additional bump on the Edmonds contract for that two-person transport unit in 2021 or like the first full year?
I believe that was $1.5 million.
Okay. I guess I just hadn't thought through the cost. We're getting 1.5 million to staff that. I mean, they're paying us for it, and yet we've got to spend, coming up on a third of that money, not quite a third, to hire people to fill the spots. So it's like, should have asked them for that startup money, but so I was a little, I just hadn't thought that through fully on what it was costing us to do that because we don't have enough people. But we've got to meet that contract. So anyways, I guess it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just for Commissioner Kenny and commissioners, and not everyone was here during those Edmonds discussions. The full ask was 1.55 million for the 12-month period. They went late past the end of the year, went the first part of the year. So we affected those staffing changes with existing personnel. Roughly it was 1.29 million that we have for the 10-month period. So it's really to embed new employees to recognize that we, just like Commissioner Kenny said, we need to be able to add those employees to be able to do that, not the existing staff that we have right now. So hopefully that adds a little bit more clarity. And then, we'll be back talking with Edmonds again next year. So.
Any additional, Commissioner Daniels?
Are you looking for a motion tonight? Some sort of decision tonight or? Okay, so then I move that we go ahead and fund those 30 positions. Those 30 new hires.
So that's a motion to approve resolution number 05172022-08.
Yes.
We have a second on the motion. Commissioner Lawrence?
Second.
Oh, okay, sorry, that's what the hand was. Second by Commissioner Rowland. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Now we just have the task of finding those people and academy and everything else that is part of that. So we look forward to bringing on more people to serve our existing contracts as well as our new contract or our new city, Mill Creek, joining us here at the end of the year. All right.
Thank you, Chair. Great job, Chief Istiello, CFO Bothwell. There's other people that worked on this, and we will identify those people with this hard work of recruitment with HR, and we'll look forward to introducing them to you some point here in the near future. So thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff.
Moving on to unfinished business 9C, capital facilities, incorporating Station 76 into the RFA capital facilities plan with DC Eastman.
Well, because no, it's okay. So because at the request of Mayor Kamenik from the city of Briar, that they had a few questions related to the RFA and EMS related questions. Just what does it look like to potentially annex to the RFA maybe sometime in the future? We've got DC Eastman, DC Maxwell, and PIO Hines at Briar's meeting tonight, just answering some questions. So we're hopeful that that conversation goes great. So I'm going to take the con on page 44, capital facilities, introducing Station 76 into the RFA's capital facilities plan. Commissioners, as you know, Station 76 is located in Mill Creek, Surfer, or formerly known as District 7. was in process with the capital facilities plan, which included Station 76. I understand from Chief O'Brien, they're actually going to move a little bit different direction now and start up with a new vendor, potentially TCA, who they weren't using previously. I think that's still yet to be determined by Chief and board. But we wanted to bring in front of you that this station is joining the RFA. We wanted to make sure that TCA could get within project description and scope, management and administration, document preparation, everything that is on page 46 and listed in the agenda bill 44, what the cost would be from TCA to incorporate this new building and land in Mill Creek. So with that, this is set up for potential action, but commissioners, this is something that we didn't talk about in work session. This is a new item. Doesn't have to be adopted tonight, but this is for any questions. I apologize. Chief Eastman is not here. I'll do my best, but this is really just an offshoot of expanding slightly the capital facilities plan.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments on this topic? Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, it's more to do with the expansion of the RFA or absorbing cities. I'd like the staff to consider, or at least have the board to consider asking the staff to consider to inform us about the potential of city of Bothell. Most of Bothell is in Snohomish County. And then there's some little dinky district in between somewhere. I don't even know if they have a station or just exist on paper or something weird like that. I'm not sure. So if there's any way you could shed some light on that now or at some other time, that's great. I think we're gonna have a short night tonight, so maybe we need some filler material here.
Well, I've got a high level filler material I can provide if it's okay with chair and commission just right now. That is Snohomish County Fire District 10. That is some of our friend fire commissioners we see at Snow Isle that represent that entity. That is all in Snohomish County and unincorporated areas, not annexed by the city of Bothell. They've been provided service by the city of Bothell for a number of years. The fire station on the top of the hill by the FEMA site is that fire district's fire station. They pay for apparatus that they own and in that fire station and pay a contract for service to the city of Bothell. And that the rest is the city of Bothell. You're right, Commissioner Lawrence, the majority is in Snohomish County. Their dispatch is through King County, their medic services through King County, and their EMS levy is mostly in King County. That's controlled by a big board. But long story short, they've experienced a lot of change. I talked to Chief Crone today. He actually is a resident of almost the RFA or the former Fire District 1 in Woodway. We talk frequently. At this point, they're watching to see what happens with Shoreline and North Shore, and watching to see what happened with Eastside and Woodinville with those two recent consolidations. And I will only add that at the request of the former city manager, City Council Bothell had a presentation at their request from Rich Davis talking about regionalization maybe 75 days ago or so. So with that, they're just there and we continue conversations. Informal, just being good neighbors at this point.
Yeah, okay. I mean, just like any city, there's really that's a real difficulty for them to have their budget work out for them. And by unloading the fire stations is a real benefit. So are they leaning that direction about not having, whether with us or with King County?
I couldn't tell you where they're at with council. Chief there used to be a District 11 fire commissioner. He was a District 11 volunteer before he got hired with Bellevue. He knows us, we know them. They went out a number of years ago and went out to a bond to rebuild their stations. They're still in the process of that right now. I don't mind saying it here. I mean, Bothell has mostly thought of itself as a King County city, primarily, especially from the fire perspective. They do have a partner, a long-standing partner with Fire District 10. It could form their own RFA theoretically just with those two entities, or look to join one of the fire districts, North Shore and Shoreline, that they have service provided by paramedics through Shoreline, or East Side has made some dramatic moves in contracting with Mercer Island and now Woodinville. So that could be a potential too. So you're right, cities, there's 3 cities left in Snohomish County that have fire departments. Everett, Mukilteo, and Bothell being the 3rd as a split. So I don't know what else I could shed light on this, but these conversations and concepts go back to about 1997 or 1998 with discussion. So they've just never got past go. Okay.
Commissioner Daniels,
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the agenda item 9C for $21,705.
it looks like a second on the motion from Commissioner Rowland.
Yes.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Chief and staff, for
Thank you.
being proactive and getting these things kind of finished ahead of time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, and I'll let Chief Eastman know. Thank you.
Moving on under agenda item 9D, or Sound Transit ST2 extension update with DC Wells and Chief Isotelo.
Commissioners, good evening. It's a pleasure to give you an update on the Linwood Link Extension project and also on our training and equipment proposal that we're going to submit to Sound Transit to recoup and recover some of the costs to do this training. By way of review, I included my proposal from my last update last November in the packet. As some of that timeline has changed on Sound Transit's side, there have been a few minor updates that I would just like to brief you on. As you know, we've started our training. There's a over 200-page manual that Sound Transit has given to us to review ahead of time. So I have been metering that out every quarter to the crews. I didn't want to dump it on them in one shot, as you can imagine. So every quarter I kind of meter that training out, and we're well ahead of the game as far as getting our crews up to speed on some of the intricacies of Sound Transit and the specific nature of what we have to deal with when we respond to an emergency with Sound Transit. Now, on the Sound Transit side, they have pushed back what they call their system integration testing. Originally last September, I had heard from them that it was going to be at the end of 2022. They have pushed that back to next summer. What that testing is that's when they first start to run the cars on the tracks. They first get the cars up there, and they basically they pull them with another vehicle, and they do the system testing to make sure things are working correctly, and then they start to move the cars a little faster, and then they finally over a period of time get them up to speed. And so that's a real benchmark for us in the fire department for when we need to be aware that we're going to have tracks moving on the train or trains moving on the track. So that has actually been pushed back to next summer. So what that also did is that pushed back our lift training. If you remember last November, I showed you guys that video where we our tech rescue team actually can lift a rail car if it gets on top of a person. And so all of that training has been pushed back a little bit, which is fine. Sound Transit is still on pace to begin to go to revenue in July of 24. So this isn't going to affect any of that. They're anticipating keeping on track with the large scale exercises. For example, that will be in early 24, where they bring all the different entities together, law enforcement, fire, DEM, dispatch, regional partners, and they do a very large scale training exercise. That is still on track to happen. So really things look good from the training perspective, and that's how I'm looking at this. So those are kind of the updates on dates. I think the one to really keep in mind is that they're still on track to go to revenue in 24. So we're set there. So the other item I wanted to brief you on is the proposal that I'm going to be sending to them, and that's regarding training and equipment. And I have been researching very thoroughly and extensively with our partners, especially those agencies who are ahead of us in this, Seattle, Bellevue, our neighbors to the south. And I've been in conversation with Sound Transit on, what training needs to look like and that kind of thing. And I brought that back here to our team. And this really, even though I did some of the heavy lifting on the front end of this thing, this really was a team effort by all of the chiefs up here. And I created this proposal and I brought it to them. And I started to get input from the different divisions. For example, prevention can look at this from a prevention aspect, and operations can look at this from their perspective, and EMS from their perspective. For example, if we had an active shooter on the train. And so I had CFO Bothwell participate in that, and he could give me input on from the financial position. And it really was a team of teams type of effort. And we created this proposal, and it covers essentially two aspects, like I described: training and equipment. And I'm not going to bore you with the details too in depth, but as you can imagine, the training is pretty extensive. Everything from operations level training, which is just your fire company on the street, how to safely operate on the tracks, what the track hazards are, how to mitigate emergencies, how to open the rail cars, that type of thing. All the way up to our tech rescue team. They are going to have to do some confined space training on the tracks. They're going to have to do that heavy lift training that I described in September, where they actually lift the rail cars. And then also there's specialized equipment. We're going to have 50-ton jacks, and we use them in series 4 at a time to lift this car, because you can imagine how heavy a light rail vehicle, and LRV is what they call it. It's a very technical exercise and evolution to lift that car. So our technical rescue team has some tools. All of those things got incorporated into this proposal, and this proposal was vetted by the entire team. We've actually even briefed other folks. For example, the mayor of Linwood, Mayor Frizzell, is aware that we're doing this because a lot of this is happening in Linwood. I have run this through legal. So I believe that this has been vetted from all different aspects. And this is going to be delivered to Sound Transit this week. And I anticipate hearing back from them in the next 30 to 60 days. And it really is a negotiation back and forth as to, kind of how this shakes itself out. But, what they think they want to cover and things like that. And so I guess what I wanted to communicate to the board tonight is that we are well ahead of our projected date when Sound Transit will go to revenue, and that the training for the department on every level is on course and on time, and we will be prepared to respond to any emergencies that come up all the way along the line. So with that, that's just my brief overview of where we are. And I know you probably have some questions. And if you do, I'm happy to take those now.
Thank you. Commissioner Rowland?
Yeah, for that equipment, if I'm understanding it correctly, ST2 will be covering portion of it, all of it, or are we on the hook for all of that? And if so, when do we need it by?
Yeah, so there's some of that equipment that they will absolutely guarantee cover. So there's some of it we don't have, and we don't have the lifting jacks and some of the equipment to do that evolution because it hasn't been in our playbook, so to speak. So that is something that they will cover. There are other extrication equipment and extrication tools that I have requested that they cover, and my hope is that they will cover that. I know I based this on what other departments have requested from Sound Transit. So this is a very common request. This is not a left field. It's very measured and reasonable. And so my hope is that they will cover the other extrication equipment that I'm requesting.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just out of a quick ballpark with all of the training and equipment, what's that number look like?
Ballpark, it's $750,000 to $1 million, somewhere in there.
And do I understand that requests for reimbursement of this have been done by other agencies, and it's going on a couple of years waiting for funds?
That's correct.
So this is something we might have to foot the bill on in advance and hope to be reimbursed in the future.
Potentially. I think the major training they will cover, like I said, the lift training and some of the initial operations level training. Some of the other stuff, it really is a negotiation back and forth. I think I have a good why and a good request, and I'm hopeful that they will cover that. Sound Transit moves slowly. I will say that. Other departments have waited an extended period of time to hear back. So
that's a funny comment for an agency that's supposed to make people move faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Commissioner Daniels.
Yeah.
So my question is Sound Transit related, but not to what you covered. What I'm curious about is with Sound Transit and their link from Linwood to Everett, how does that impact the HQ facility, the site itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago where they're still studying the different locations for the stations. Currently, the station makes a hard left on 128th and heads towards Payne Field, so it won't impact our headquarters station. They are still studying, though, the various locations for the stations. Each stop has 4 locations that in this meeting they pared them down, and they're really looking at 2 for each, but it's going to make a hard left, go 128th to Payne Field and then north to Everett.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about HQ being eminent domain and all that jazz, right?
Not by Sound Transit, no, sir.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's what I really wanted to hear.
All right.
Any additional questions, comments? Commissioner Kenny?
Chief Wells, maybe I just didn't hear, but what was the total value, or what are you requesting on the grant? What's the total on the grant?
Well, I gave a ballpark since I said it was right around $750,000 to $1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions, comments on this? All right. Well, thank you for all the work, and hopefully our paper slips to the top of the pile and
that's right.
It doesn't gather dust. All right. Moving on in our agenda, item 10, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Daniels.
Chief Hovis, I'm interested in circling back to the topic of the salary survey, and if we could start that discussion at the next meeting, what was passed on in December.
So to clarify, so you're looking at the 2021 salary survey that was presented in, I believe it's like November, December to the board.
Right.
Because we do have a 2022 salary survey that will be conducted, I'm assuming pretty soon. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, staff's been investigating other options to bring back to have discussions with the board about getting a sustainable company that could work hopefully locally on a salary survey. And there are a couple options that we have identified, but we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But we've talked with one particular company in particular that's worked recently with the city of Edmonds. They're currently conducting a salary philosophy and salary survey for some represented and non-represented staff at Snow 911 had an initial meeting with them and some follow-up, but that would be moving forward. With all of these companies, what we're finding is they want to wait and see where the market is. They want to see where CPI comes in, where inflation comes in. So any work that could be done, they really need to get into almost July, August before they can move forward to do work, to have anything ready to go for consideration by councils or commissions for implementation in 2023. That's a long way to say that's the answer to the question, Chair. That's what we've been working on.
Okay. So but Commissioner Daniels, I guess, desire to bring back was at the conducting the salary survey last year, there were step increases suggested in that salary survey, in addition to that 6.3% COLA. When it came to the board kind of bifurcated those two items, approved the COLA, and passed on the step increases to bring it back at a later date. And we're 5 months into the year and we haven't brought that back. And so are you able to gather kind of information on that previous salary survey and what impacts that would have, either moving forward or the number of people that were impacted by that step increase?
Yeah, we would be able to do that. I don't want to go into too much detail, but commissioners that maybe weren't here and those that were, there was some certain positions in the organization that were being discussed or talked about. So we commissioned just as you said, Chair, the global COLA, but there was some identified positions that could be addressed. So we'd be able to bring that information previously provided to the commission back to the board. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional commissioner comments? Commissioner Rowland, then Commissioner Kenny.
No, go ahead, Commissioner Kenny. I didn't get my hand up.
Okay.
All right. I had actually kind of a question for the chief, or if he wants to comment. I was just thinking here as we get into the end of the meeting that our next meeting is our last meeting of May. We're into June, and June brings us close to the 4th of July, and we haven't really talked about the 4th of July since I'm going to say April. So one thing that seemed like it was maybe in doubt, maybe it wasn't. We had conversation about it. Is what are we doing with the sheriff's office and enforcement? So I was wondering if you could give an update on what our current, because time's running short. If we're doing anything, 6 weeks is not a lot of time. So what's the current plan?
Commissioner Kenny, good question. I told Chief Fitzgerald he could save his voice for our next time we get together to talk about those items. But so if it's okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Chief and he can give you a preview of where we're at. So, Chief.
Hi, Commissioners. So we have been investigating with the Sheriff's Office whether or not they would be interested in entering into an agreement as we had with them in 2021. Their initial response was, we have some staffing problems and we're not sure we can accommodate, but let us look into it and we'll get back to you. And since that time, I've pinged them several times since and not getting any response. So I think that that's probably a good indication of the final response that we will get. We're also looking at other communications methods with our community in terms of the messaging that we provide to our community, not only in terms of the lack of the safety of fireworks, but what to do when you have a complaint about fireworks. Interestingly, we had a discussion of sorts with the county fire marshal about that, who did not want such complaints forwarded to the county council. Instead, they wanted the reference to the county code, which of course is not anyone or anything that answers a phone or answers an email. And so in talking with the legislative aides at county council, we have identified a good communications pathway that we can assist by sending complainants, not to the code itself, but to somebody who will actually take their take their calls, and we're able to provide effective communications, not only in our newsletter that is, as the chief mentioned, soon to be printed, but also our website, which is undergoing those edits right now on the back end of the website. So a lot of work is occurring. We do not have any indication yet from the sheriff's office whether they will be engaged with us as we have in the past.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks. And I see we've got a resolution or something we're going to consider on fireworks at the next meeting in June. So if we could, can we talk more about it at that
Certainly.
next meeting? Because I know I'm just kind of springing this on you, so I just
Not at all.
don't want to
We're
get too in
always
depth
ready.
on it. I just was thinking about the sheriffs and how close this is, and we hadn't talked about it recently. So thanks.
Yeah, we're always ready to try to answer your question. So thanks for the question.
Commissioner Rowland.
First, I wanted to, I guess, thank stations 10 and 11. My mother visited for the first time out here in Seattle and had a little spill right as she was about to leave. So we almost got through a mother visit without drama, but the paramedics were called out for that, and you know, they did a great job, and she's back home and resting. So wanted to thank them for their professionalism and their quick response and everything else there. The second thing is I just wanted to just get a status update, if nothing else, just an ETA from Assistant Chief Isotelo. I know that DC Eastman was also kind of tasked with looking at this basement issue and when we could expect an update on that.
Commissioner Rowland, that's a great question. I met with Seth, who is heading up our facilities group this morning. He did not have an update on that particular item for me, but I will check with him tomorrow to see if they've signaled anywhere, any completion of any items that we might be able to meet with them again on. The last we told them was to go ahead and move forward with working with the county to find out about the stair issue, as well as permitting, and then doing the floor plans and such, and the scope of work. So that is where it was left, but it's been a couple weeks. So I will find out and get back to the board.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that I guess you just said the county's aware of kind of the progress that we're trying to make towards making a decision on that, and make sure that they're up to date so we don't end up you know, wearing their patience. And so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, a couple things. I'd just like to welcome the new IT manager, Chris. How do you say your last name again?
Sorry, it's Grunewald.
Grunewald, okay.
There you go.
So are you really good with Apple equipment?
Really good, I would say probably not, but I have had a fair share of experience with it. So
Okay.
more Windows based.
All right, because when I have issues, which are often, I can call you and you will be able to help me sort of. Excellent. Okay.
Try my best. Thanks.
Welcome to the RFA. Okay, and for Chief Fitzgerald, going back to the, are you still there? I don't, do I see? There you
Sir,
are.
I'm here.
I see it. Okay. Someone switched it from the right bottom to the left. Okay, all right. So, so that number that the public can call, or get contact, is that going to be someone at the county council?
Yeah, there's both an email address that goes to all elected county commissioners. And there's a phone number that goes to a voicemail recording that is, as I understand it, is answered by one of the legislative aides of the county council.
Okay, yeah, because it's really the county that's really should take the brunt of people's complaints about what's going on. They're what's that called, moral hazard that they've created. So, and of course, I'll stop right here. Okay, thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Any additional commissioner comments? All right, seeing none. On to item 11, adjournment. It's still light out, so go
Wow.
use your time. Go use your time wisely.
Is this a
Thank you.
record? Is this the shortest meeting ever or what?
No, not quite. We did beat this one once.
No, at least the shortest meeting since I've been fire chief that I was
Oh,
here.
wow.
Isotela's got me. So thanks,
Oh, yeah.
commissioners. We got some good
That's
work done
right,
today.
That's right.
tonight.
We gave Chief Isotelo an award for that and for setting an example of how it should be done. That was great.
That's
I remember that.
good job again, then, Chief Isotelo. That's good. What was your number? We got to get underneath it next time. So, all right. Thank you, Chair and commissioners and staff. Appreciate the meeting tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.